Yeah, so I wanted to show one other thing here that's of great importance, is the ush file, which is funny. In Swedish, that'd be the equivalent of like gross. So this is the shader header, which is going to lay out our vertex factory, which is essentially telling the GPU what and where and all the vertex properties we need to actually render the mesh. And this is another file that is heavily modified to support our code. The local vertex factory, this is the primary one used for most mesh types. But there's these custom macros. And the syntax highlighting here sucks because this is not a CPP or C file. I have set it to use HLSL just so that some of the float fours and macros kind of highlight. One trick I could do is like if I was to add an if define here, I could define spline instancing so that it would act like these macros they would show up better, essentially. But I'm not going to do that because I have done that before and then I forgot to remove it, and I was wondering why everything was breaking, and that was foolish.
You fool!
I'm a fool, a damned fool. So one major change that they've done here is they've collapsed all their spline data into one nicely compacted array here of float fours, and you can see them like putting different properties into so the W component is getting the spline roll, and that's just a scalar, and then this position is a vector, so that we just use these properties.
Quite different how they used to do it.
Yes, so this
We've
is
pretty much wrapped this exact thing almost, if I remember correctly. Like we've done our own version of this.
I wonder if I still
like
have
all
that.
these defines.
Yeah,
But
well,
in a
that's
struct.
exactly. So yeah, we had done them before. It was below and separate, and that was an optimization because we didn't actually necessarily need everything that they were passing in, like this smooth interp roll scale we're not using. But now that they've packed it down, our thinking actually is that we're going to try to use their struct here, their layout, instead of using our custom floats, as it'll be easier to upgrade in the future, and we can minimize the duplication of code.
It just works.
It just works. So we've already merged. So this file, this isn't like I'm not doing the full upgrade. So anywhere you see use spline instancing, that's a macro that we've defined, and I'll show you where. So in the, so was it modify? Yeah. So when you're declaring a vertex factory, there's this wonderful function called modify compilation environment, which it will call, and you can pass in specific defines to use, and this is ours, which we have to use with the when generating the shader. So if we didn't have this set define in our CPP here, the previous, where'd it go? That's got to be a cliche, right? Everybody who streams trying to do this stuff. Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
No, I think that's just you.
That's just me. Thanks,
Dude,
you jackass.
Okay, I thought that was your cat in the background. That's your coat hanger.
Yeah, it's a coat, and I don't know if you can see the coffee stain hoodie on the.
I legit thought that was your cat sitting like on something.
It likes to perch high. Yeah, I'm hoping my cats don't disturb me too much, or maybe I do because they're adorable. Now where was I, Snoot? Oh yeah, just that's where the define's being passed in from the CPP code. And so that's something we always have to change just to make sure it's using this. But now on to some actual development, I think, perhaps. As going through all these different structs and classes would be way outside the scope of what this could ever potentially be. And I don't even have the full understanding of this system. So here we've commented out SPF mandatory, and then with a funny comment, this should not be optional. So right now it compiles and works because we've set this to optional, And the reason the mesh isn't showing up is because these parameters just don't exist, and we need them, all of these, to actually get the correct instance locations and render it properly. So the vertices are essentially just non-existent because these parameters are not working. So they should be this, mandatory. So I'm going to switch them. Now, as some of you may guess, so yeah, this is where I just make it, that makes it not read-only. If I was to compile and run this, I would get a shader error crash while booting. And that's something I'm aware of. So I don't want to do that because it would just take long to show you how much it fails. So now that they're mandatory, we need to get these parameters in there.